In October 2016, UNESCO's Executive Board ratified a resolution which attempted to erase 3,000 years of Jewish religious history in Jerusalem. The resolution was drafted by Jordan and submitted by Algeria, Egypt, Lebanon, Morocco, Oman, Qatar, and Sudan, with the enthusiastic support of the Palestinian Authority, a full member of UNESCO since 2011. The central aim of the resolution was to formalize criticism of Israel's conduct in Jerusalem. It referred to Israel as the occupying power and blamed the Jewish state for the spike in violence in the region. Condemnation of alleged Israeli aggression has long been a standard talking point in the United Nations. That alone did not set off alarm. What disturbed Israelis about the UNESCO resolution was that it made Jerusalem's holy basin an exclusively Islamic prerogative. By only referring to the Temple Mount by its Arabic name, Al-Haram al-Sharif, the resolution's language severed ties between Judaism and the Temple Mount. The Western Wall was reduced to Al-Barak Plaza, the place where Muhammad tethered his horse. In the resolution, the Arabic name was only twice followed by the Western Wall's Hebrew name, but it was placed in quotation marks, a grammatical detail that Israelis took as direct belittling of Judaism's linkage to the site. The resolution made no mention of the Jewish temples that stood at the site for 1,000 years, or the next 2,000 years of continuous Jewish attachment to Jerusalem. Only once did the drafters soften their bias by making a generalized reference to the importance of the Old City and its walls for the three monotheistic religions. The resolution accused Israel of restricting Muslim worship on the Temple Mount and inciting violence. Yet no mention was made of the ban on Jewish worship or the regular assaults on Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount. This same week of the vote, 2 Israelis were killed in Jerusalem by a Palestinian man on a rampage with a knife. 24 countries voted in favor of the resolution, 26 abstained, and 6 countries voted against it, including the US, Britain, and Germany. It was considered a diplomatic victory in Israel that 33 countries which originally supported the draft resolution dropped down to 24. France and Spain's abstentions were especially appreciated. Even the Director General of UNESCO at the time, Irina Bokova, made statements after the vote that reflected her disapproval. Bokova understood that UNESCO's member countries were countering the organization's promise to safeguard cultural and religious sensitivities. In her official statement, she said, "To deny or conceal or erase any of the Jewish, Christian, or Muslim traditions undermines the integrity of the site and runs counter to the reasons that justify the Temple Mount's inscription on the UNESCO World Heritage List." Bokova received death threats from Islamic terrorists shortly after her statement. The resolution was more than a public insult. It raised the stakes in the battle over the Temple Mount. Netanyahu denied UNESCO's authority to distort human history. He stated, "These distortions of history are only reserved for the Jews. Does anyone claim that the pyramids in Giza have no connection to the Egyptians, that the Acropolis in Athens has no connection to the Greeks, that the Colosseum in Rome has no connection to the Italians? It is ridiculous to try and sever the connection between the Temple Mount and the Jewish people." Israelis refused to cower and lick their wounds after the international blow. 2 days after the ratification of the UNESCO resolution, 50,000 Jews gathered at the Western Wall to receive the blessing recited annually during Sukkot. A record number of Israelis, 3,000 in 3 weeks, ascended the Temple Mount, including IDF soldiers in uniform. The message was clear. Jerusalem is the center point of the Jewish faith. The holy places are not the exclusive domain of Islam. Since UNESCO's public insult, Jewish visits to the Temple Mount remain historically high. Though the drafters of the UNESCO resolution tried to abuse an international body to sever the ties between Judaism and the Temple Mount, the results have had the opposite effect, at least for Israelis. When threatened with losing their most sacred site, Israelis across the religious and political spectrum are reclaiming their holiest site. What UNESCO meant for bad, Zionism has turned for good. A year ago, President Donald Trump shocked the world when he announced that the United States was pulling its membership from UNESCO and canceling the $80 million that we paid in dues each year. In fact, the U.S. had withheld its dues since 2011 because of a U.S. law passed in the 1990s that allowed our country to withhold American funding to any international institution that unilaterally recognized an independent Palestinian state. That meant that we owed $500 million to UNESCO in back dues. President Trump declined the bill. Withdrawing from UNESCO was the first in a series of moves to teach anti-Israel UN bodies a lesson. Those lessons have kept coming. It is no wonder that Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a meeting with Ambassador Nikki Haley, said, "With you and the UN, things have been much better." UNESCO has most recently gone after Hebron and Bethlehem. This past October, UNESCO's executive board adopted 2 resolutions labeling the 2 holy cities as Palestinian cities. Praising their consensus-building efforts, the new Director General of UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay, proudly endorsed the outcome as a result of UNESCO's ability to foster international dialogue and cooperation and show goodwill. A firm reminder of what the psalmist says in the 2nd chapter. The one enthroned in heaven laughs, and the Lord scoffs at them. Shabbat Shalom.